Oh, hello. Today we're going to look at the Kill Team Balanced Dataslate for Q3 2022. Feels like we're sailing towards Q4 2022, but I guess we're getting our Balanced Dataslates in arrears, right? So really good this came out because I'm sitting here going, oh, what can I do for today's video? Oh well, my guys know that I've just had a baby. You won't be expecting a daily video, and then bam, Warhammer community to the rescue. A really easy but useful video for me to go through the changes. So I'll put the link to the full document in the description. But what I've done is I've picked out the bits that have changed. Let's talk about them. So first on the menu is the novitiates. The novitiates have been nerfed. Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of people go, oh, they're so broken. Haven't won any major events to my recollection, right? Like, no major events. Like, they won events, but they haven't won any major events. But, you know, they have a high win rate, and there are segments of the community that make videos with orange backgrounds that have been very vocal in explaining how broken they are. So they've taken a nerf, which is fine. And to be fair, look, I'm not very good. And so I have this feeling of grief because I play with the broken team, and when I lose, it's, oh, you can't even win with them, and when you win, it's, oh, you only won because they're so broken, or that experience was a bit negative for me. So it's like, well, to be fair, to be totally fair, the nerfs, such as they are pretty weak. They're pretty mild nerfs, right? We need to admit that. I don't want to see any nerfs. I don't think that they needed a nerf. I don't think that they were that busted. But the nerfs, such as they are, if they make people happy, we want to spread the net amount of happiness in the world, okay? If they make people happier, then good. So, first thing they've done is the Auto Chastiser, which lets you re-roll your ones for one equipment point, but if you re-roll it back to a 1, you take a mortal wound. That now costs 2 equipment points. Honestly, at 2 EP, you're still going to take one for your plasma pistol. You're still going to take one for your plasma pistol. You're not necessarily going to take them for your flamethrowers anymore, right, where they were just gravy. And you can't use active faith to change dice that you've re-rolled. So previously you could re-roll things with the Auto Chastiser and then still use a faith point on them, or you could use the faith point to re-roll them, and then if you didn't like the result, you could then decide to pay more faith points to change them. So, well, they've taken a little bit of the consistency out of novitiates. It remains to be seen what this does. I think, for the amount of people were whining about them, I think the nerf back could have swung a lot harder. I think this is a modest little tap. I think, I don't think this should make a massive change, really. If anything, and this is going to sound weird, like the Chastiser thing is a nerf, right? That's fine. It is definitely a nerf, and it nerfs and it makes things worse because the Chastiser was a good piece of equipment. The Acts of Faith thing is interesting because it, in some ways, is going to prevent you playing badly. Because it's going to prevent you from spending a point to do a reroll, and then that didn't go in your favour, and then you end up spending the 2 points to do the dice change. And I feel like over enough games it'll average out to make not much difference, that you'll just have to go straight to the dice change. What it might do though is contribute to the amount of... It's already a team, I think, with a lot of analysis paralysis, in that normally in Kill Team, you know, your opponent throws the dice, you throw the dice, you can both see what's happening, and I've had lots of games where, you know, you throw your dice, they throw their defense dice, or whatever it is, and then your opponent starts trying to move on with the turn sequence, and you're like, hang on, because I can modify these, and I've got to have a minute here to think, do I want to spend any of my resources to modify these? And now I'm going to have to think, well, do I want to spend this many to do a reroll, or do I want to spend this many to just change your dice? And it's a real thought. Do I want to change one and re-roll one? Do I want to re-roll one and see what that does and then potentially change another? It just adds an extra little dynamics of that bit of consideration, which might mean that novitiates are quite high cognitive load team, you know, adds to their cognitive load. I don't think they've been nerfed into the ground. I think it's a weeny little nerf, and we'll see where they go. We'll see where they go. Oops. Phobos have had a buff. It's a pretty big buff, I think. So they've got a new strategic ploy, deadly shots, 1 CP, until the end of the turning point. Each time a friendly Phobos strike team operative makes a shooting attack, if it hasn't yet charged, fallen back, or made a normal move, it can do P1. It gains P1 on its normal guns, which is great. So if you're in a position where you can shoot without having to charge, without having to do a normal move, really effectively, you can dash. You can dash and then shoot with, because dash is not on that list. So you can dash if someone's just around a corner and then still shoot with P1. It's pretty damn good. It gives your entire team P1. Hopefully gives you a way of kind of playing into other elite teams, right? Because that's what Phobos really lacked. They lack anything that really punches into other elite teams in a significant way. So I've got Phobos painted up. I'm quite excited to give them a go with this new ploy. See how that goes. It should give them a little bit of extra oomph. So a nice buff there for the Phobos. Does it go far enough to bring them up to make them playably? A part of the reason that Phobos are poorly regarded, I guess, is because the Intercession team is out now, and the people that want to play Space Marines are going to play that one in preference to the Phobos anyway. But yeah, I can see this being quite an exciting change. It can be quite a good buff for the Phobos, and it's great that you have that extra CP generation built in. You know, you get 1 extra CP every turn while your leader is alive, so you can afford to be spending this every turn if that's what you want to do. That's nice. That's nice. And finally, Warp Coven have got a buff. Now I'm going to... Warp Coven are one of the 3 teams, the 3 bespoke teams that I'm a bit ropey on understanding precisely how they work. Because I haven't done my first impressions video for Warp Coven for a reason. And it's because I find Warp Coven quite confusing. But as best as I can see it, you've got your rubric command ability, the range is increased, so it makes it easier now for a sorcerer to babysit your rubrics. It makes it easier for a sorcerer to babysit multiple rubrics if that's what you want. It makes it much easier for you to kind of lay out your team and have everyone performing optimally. That middle bullet point is something to do with battle honours, which means it's to do with narrative play, so we're going to pretty much ignore it. It really just means that that battle honour is also benefiting from the distance requirement's gone to red generally, so for the battle honour, the distance requirement is removed altogether, is what it's saying. It's really, this should be, I'm sorry to correct Games Workshop's typing, right, really, this should be, I would indent that in, because really that is a sub-clause of that change. That's the change to competitive play, and that's a little sub-change for narrative play that follows on logically from that competitive play change, in my opinion. And then you've got this other thing here. Okay, so a new bullet point, a new thing. You add the following to the Exalted Astarte strategic ploy. In addition to the end of the turning point, each time a friendly rubric marine operative is activated, if it does not perform a fight action in the activation, it can perform 2 shoot actions. So for a strategic ploy, you can shoot twice. If it's a gunner operative, an additional action point must be subtracted to perform the second shoot action. I mean, fair enough. But you're getting a double shoot across your whole team. Really, really good. Really, really good. It's going to really improve the damage output of the Warp Coven. So that's it. Those are all the material changes. So to sum up, a little nerf to the Vitiates. I think a reasonable buff to Phobos and quite a big buff to Warp Coven, although not a Warp Coven expert. So if you do play Warp Coven, give me your thoughts down in the comments as to how big of a buff this is. Let's have a little look at the actual article, because we got some pros to go along this. So it says, overall, we're pretty happy with the state of balance. With a few exceptions, win rates are looking close to our aim of 45 to 55%. So you can see here who's falling above the 55, right? Like it's Novitiates, Bloodied and Wormblade, and who's falling below the 45? It was the Compendium and the Phobos, right? That's what they say they're aiming for. Obviously, they've not. Right, so they've said that's what they're aiming for, but then if we actually look at the teams that they've changed Novitiates, and they've changed Phobos, and they've also changed Warp Coven. So even though Warp Coven are apparently within the range they're happy with, and Bloodied and Wormblade are outside the range they're happy with. They've left right. And we know now, and I know this has been a question that's been asked elsewhere in the community, these are events with 20 or more players. So they're only counting events with 20 or more players when they come up with their stats. They say, we're entering a really interesting quarter for Kill Team. Into the Dark offers a brand new way to play. A whole host of new factions, so not counted in this. We've got 5 factions, right? We've got the Intercession team, not counted here. And then we've got the Imperial Navy, the Euclidean Star Striders, the Galapox Infected, and the Kroot. So there's 5 new bespoke teams that haven't been looked at. Their data hasn't been considered. They're giving them some more time to bed in. So that'll be the next balanced data slate. If you're thinking there's going to be a nerf to the Intercession team or a buff to Kroot, that'll be waiting for the next data set. Good. So some updates. So let's look at their explanations. So the Novitiates had a strong showing. We've increased the cost of the Auto Chastiser and prevented you using the acts of faith on reroll dice. Okay. The Phobos strike team started off well in June, but as their popularity has increased, their win rate's fallen behind. And this is what happens a lot in the stats. You find that teams that are doing well, they become popular, and then their win rate goes down because as their popularity rises. Kill Team is fundamentally a skill-based game, so you get scrubs like me who go, okay, well I want to play that team, and they drag down that team's overall performance. Doesn't mean the team has gotten worse. It just means that if more people are playing a team, there's going to be more low-skill people playing the team. Similarly, you can have quite a subpar team, rules-wise, but if the only people playing it are kind of the handful of people that really mesh with that team can have an inflated win rate. So that's why Phobos have moved, I would guess, right? So they perform better than average in terms of podiums and events wins. So we believe they're a high-skilled team with great potential, but they struggle against other elite teams. Yeah, and so this is it, looking at the matchup data. They struggle against Heretic Startes, the Intercession squad. So we've got a strategic ploy useful against those teams, which is exactly what I kind of suggested that they'd done. Okay. Now this is interesting. I'm going to talk about the Bloodied. The Bloodied have the second highest win rate, but their data is unreliable because they have the lowest pick rate. So again, it could just be a small cadre of elite people who are doing really well with the Bloodied, but most people have written them off as being really hard to use. So we're going to wait and see how they do later in the year, particularly in the close confines of the Gallowdark. And that opens up the whole question of to what extent is, once all this Gallowdark data comes in to the meta, given that, Kill Team, I think more than any other game that Games Workshop have made, they are paying explicit attention to the win rates and the meta. So if they're now going to lump all those Gallowdark games in with the regular Overworld games and adjust the meta accordingly, that might really throw off the meta for people who are playing, who reject Gallowdark and are playing pure Overworld games. Yeah, they might unintentionally break things in the Overworld if they're reacting to a load of Gallowdark data. Or the opposite could happen, couldn't they? People could just not play Gallowdark at official events much, and then it doesn't get played very much. There could be teams that are really rubbish or really dominant in that format, but that never trickles into the win rates because unless they segregate the data somehow. Okay. The Warp Coven have the second lowest pick rate, but unlike the Bloodied, they've been present for a while, so they've given them some improvements. That's all they really say there. They're just really trying to lure people into giving them a go, I guess, because their pick rate's really low. I think their pick rate's low because they're complicated, but that's just me. Elsewhere, Kill Teams from the Compendium are falling behind the dedicated new factions. As more Kill Team releases appear, factions within that book are slowly getting a tailor-made team to represent them. So this implies that it is still Games Workshop's plan to give us a Necron team, a Death Guard team, a Tyranid team, a Grey Knights team. We're going to see these factions represented with bespoke teams. So that's really positive. It also means they don't care to balance them, which is potentially negative, but, what you going to do? It will be interesting to see the full data with the Compendium teams expanded out to see if any of them are actually doing better than the compendium as a whole. But right, that's it from me today. So final thoughts. Again, your thoughts on this in the comments. I am not someone that wins a load of events and a load of tournaments. Maybe you've seen some wrinkle that I've missed. The only real value I think I'm adding here is to pick out, look, this has come out, and these are the things they've changed. Obviously, I'll leave it to the more expert players to mull over exactly what they think the impact on the meta is going to be. The other thing to note is there are no changes from the previous slates, so nothing that they've added in has been removed or changed or edited, so everything that was in the Q1 and the Q2 data slate is still here in the Q3 data slate. Alright folks, hope you enjoyed the video. If you've not subscribed, please do. I think we're about 125 subscribers away from hitting our goal of 1,000 subs, which would be amazing. And other than that, like, comment and all that stuff. Hope you have a fantastic evening, rest of your day, whatever it is that you're doing. Cheery bye.